wherever, if you look at the Indian situation, you'd find that India has been standing at a plurality square, where you have a language, culture, society, and literature, and each one affecting the other. Because there are cases where the languages are different, but they share the same culture, or the cultures are different, but they share the same language. And if you look at it, it goes round and round. In case of Indian scenario, there are lots of changes that happen in one part of the country, and that affects the other part. So you have similar kind of examples which you can replicate from each of the language families in the country. If you look at the scenario from the South Asian scene, from the pattern of migration, you would notice that there has been a migration from the west to the east. This is not something which I go into detail, but this is only to tell you that we have always had people coming from outside. This is nothing which is new. But how have we treated them? There has been initial clashes, there have been initial wars, but eventually they have settled it down in the country, and they mixed with the other population, and as a result, each of the languages that have come in through migration, through wars, through various other kinds of movements, they have all got integrated into the country. They got split into several other languages, but there are also some basic unities that existed in the country. And if you look at the west to east migration, and if you look at the genetic division in the South Asian scenario vis-a-vis the entire Asia, you find that South Asia, or India, has emerged as a linguistic area right from the beginning. This was only pointed out in 1958 by Murray B. Emino, but this had existed even from the earlier days. So basically, the tendency has been from the clashes to commingling. People have come together, and all latecomers, wherever they came from, they have very interestingly got mixed with the local population. So assimilation has basically been the order of the day. The assimilation that was talked about here by Suniti Kumar Chatterjee in the quote that I give here on the Indo-Europeans, they talked about the strengths of the Indo-Europeans who came into India, that they were very strong in terms of organization, in terms of discipline, in terms of warfare, mental vigor and qualities, and they brought with them the language. But what happened eventually is that when they got mixed up with the local population, the Dravidians, the Austrics, the Tibeto-Burmans, they themselves split into so many parts. So Indo-Aryan became so many different kinds of Indo-Aryan very soon, very quickly. So the split and merger had been the order of the day. Integration and conflict have been order of the day in the country. We understand that this is exactly the way the dialectics of the country worked, and this is something which is unavoidable. Now let me look at the complexity. As I told you, that I'll give you an idea of the complexity of the Indian scenario. If you look at this, then you find that it occupies much less space, 2.4% of the world's surface, but 16% of world population. And look at the languages which are being spoken here. 1576 rationalized languages. By rationalization, we mean what happens is the census, when they collect the data from the common people, they ask this question, which mother tongue do you speak? And they give you the names of the mother tongue. This could be a claim which is not necessarily supportable based on the linguistic evidences. So the census authorities look at the 100-year, 125-year data to find out which one of those are genuine claims, where there is a kind of legacy. And they find that 1,576 of them are rationalized mother tongues. There are another 1796 which are claimed mother tongues, which are important, which have been found to be very different in terms of structure and function, and yet we don't know which families they belong to. In all, if you look at 10,000 plus population, which are the varieties spoken by 10,000 plus people, there are 122 of them. 22 of our languages are in the 8th schedule of the Constitution. These cover about 96% of our population. But there are others which make up for the 22% of the population. Now, how many of these are useful in terms of production of writing and dissemination of information? If you look at the press statistics from the government of India, you find 101 are the varieties in which press and publication happen. In fact, if you wish to go into the details, which I don't present here, there are about 274 major newspapers and about 900 plus medium ranking newspapers and 3,300 plus small newspapers and literary magazines. So that's the scenario of the country. 146 of them are used in the radio network, television network, 14 major writing systems, and many others which are not writing systems, which are known to people. But if you look at just one major language, which is the official language of the country, Hindi, it is spread over about 11 states, and this itself has about 49 different varieties of Hindi. And this itself will tell you what the other languages would be like. I don't have to go into the details of the other languages. Now, if you look at the census operations, you find that in the latest census, the claims were 6,661. There were 6,000 plus people claiming to be speaking different languages, out of which what you've got is 3,000 odd, 3,500 odd mother tongues in this particular country. And if this is surprising, it is not surprising because right from 1901 census, when we had the Irish linguist Grierson talking about Indian scenario, we had the statistics of 179 languages and 544 dialects. What kind of barriers we had when we started our journey as a political entity? We had three kinds of barriers. And one is geographic barriers. This is a large country with huge amount of different kinds of climates, different kind of space. We also had the political barriers because we had 134 different kingdoms which got merged into one country, and therefore there were different kinds of systems available. So we had to really integrate them. We had social barriers based on the class, the caste barriers, the rank, and the employment. How did we overcome these barriers? Now, while overcoming the political barriers, what happened was this. In 1953, the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, set up a States Reorganization Commission. That is, at that point of time, between 1947, when India became independent, and 1953, we had 27 states. But after 1953, when the report was submitted in 1956, we became only 14 states, based on 14 languages. 14 languages got into the Indian Constitution, and slowly the other languages came in.